leather outfit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where are you living in the end? Yeah. No. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's where I mean, I live further down, but I lived past that intersection also. That's awesome. No. You have the same agent? That's so funny. Yeah, yeah. That's so funny. That's so funny. That's really, really funny. Yeah, you're the same guy. All right. We're good, Hector. Okay. Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I don't think we do. We are going to begin Mincha on page.
Afternoon service.
Here.
2:14.
On page 214, in the Lev Shalem, page, I think it's 558 in the Sidur Sim Shalom. Anyway, Mincha for Shabbat, and we will continue with Jackie and get to the Torah service very soon, and then I will tell you where we are in the Chumash. You can use this if you want. 214.
אשרי בביתך, עוד יעלוך סלה, אשרי עם שככה לו, אשרי עם שאדוני אלוהיו, הילה לדוד, תהילת אדוני דבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שמקודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה, ובא לציון, ועל השם שמקבנו. מעתה קדוש, ישבתי לעלות ישראל, דקר הזל, זבי אמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך על הארץ, כבודו. ותזהיני רוח, ושמע אחרי כל רעש גדול, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ויפתחו בחיותי שמך, כי לא זבת דרשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר.
Kaddish, page 217.
יקדש ויקדש שמי רבה, ועמד דברכותי, ועמליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומךו, ובחיי תוכל בית ישראל, בעלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה וברך, לעולם ולעולמי. יתברך וישתבח, ויתבר ותרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקדושה בריחו, לעולם אין כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן מעלמה ואמרו אמן. ואני Ani tefilati lechadonai etratzon Elohim berav chastecha Anini bemet yishacha Vayihi bin Aaron vayomer Moshe Kumadonai b'yafutzu ayvecha Ve'anusim esanecha mipanecha Himitzion tetzei Torah Dvaronai miRushalayim Baruch Natan Torah Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato God Lord and Iti Ramashem Bo Yachtav Lechadonai Hagdula
V'gvura v'tiferet v'netzach v'hod Ki chov hashamayim u'va'aretz L'chadonai hamalecha Menaseh lechol erosh Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu V'ishtachavu l'adam raglav kadoshu Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu V'ishtachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu Hashem Ramemu Hashem Eloheinu Ve'yishachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu Hashem Eloheinu. Yes, that's for you. Hello.
We don't want it to blow away.
You want to go reach down? Oh, no. No, it's okay. It's just like, wow, you can do all the work if you want.
can.
Yeah. True.
No, that doesn't. Yes, I know.
Yeah. I'm glad you know. Okay. Shabbat Shalom again, everyone. We are on page 1037 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. If you are on Zoom and not using an Eitz Chaim Chumash, it is Deuteronomy chapter, I don't know, chapter 7, verse 12. And is there anybody who would really like an aliyah, or I'll just call on people? Okay, great. I'll just call on people. There's going to be a theme to who gets these aliyah. Give me 1 second. I need all the cedar, obviously.
Yes, we need to have some brachos here.
It's also it's also in here.
Yeah. ותיגע לבטר מלכותה למזמן קרוב ויחום פדתנו פליטת בית ישראל לחנו חסר רחמים רצון ונאמר אמן הכובד הן כבוד לתורה יעמוד הרב Feivel Handel Ben Tuva Ubielka Lilia Rishon Baruch Natan Torah L'Maisra B'Kedushato V'atem v'kimon alechem hayim kolchem hayom.
Baruch et Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Vayed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Vayed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayai kev tishmeun et hamishpatim ha'ele u'shmartem v'asitem otam v'shamar Adonai Elohecha lecha. Dabrid v'yata chesed asher nishba lavotecha v'hevecha v'rechecha v'herbecha v'rach pritnecha v'yad matecha deganacha v'tirashcha v'yitzarecha shagar lefecha v'asharot zonecha al harama asher nishba lavotecha latet lach baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim lo yevecha akar v'akara v'yivemtecha v'yisir Adonai mimcha kol choli v'chol madvei Mitzrayim haraim asher yadata לא ישימם בך ונתנם בכל צונך, ואכלת את כל העמים אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, לא תחוס עינך עליהם, ולא תעבוד את אלוהיהם, כי לא קשרו לך. כי תאמר בלבבך רבים הגויים האלה ממני, אכל כל הורישם, לא תירא מהם זכור תזכור. את אשר עשה אדוני אלוהיך לפרעה ולכל מצרים, המסות הגדולות אשר ראו עיניך, והאותות והמופתים וחיית החזקה והזרוע הנטויה, אשר הוציאך אדוני אלוהיך, כן יעשה אדוני אלוהיך לכל העמים, אשר אתה ירא מפניהם, וגם את הצירה ישלח, אדוני אלוהיך בעמד אבות הנשארים, הנסתרים מפניך, לא תערוץ מפניהם, כי אדוני אלוהיך בקרבך אל גדול ונורא.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Yeah, that's true. There's one over there if you want it. Yeah.
Take your time.
We got time.
There's no
Shabbos
rush.
isn't over yet.
A long time.
Then no
Exactly.
Baruch et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Lelam Vaed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'nashal Adonai Elohecha tagoyim ha'el. Mipanecha me'at ma'at lo tuchal kalotam maher. Pen tibei alecha chayat hasadeh untanaham Adonai Elohecha lefaro lefanecha v'chamam mehuma hagdolaha ahad hisham taham v'natan machechem beyadecha v'havarata shemam mitachat hashamayim lo yityatzeb ish befanecha ad hishmidecha otam v'silei Elohem tisrafuhun ba'ish lo tachmod kesef v'zahav alehem v'lakachta lach pein tivakesh bo ki toavat Adonai Elohecha hu v'lo tavi toiva el beitecha v'yitacherem kamohu shaketz teshaktzenu v'ta'ev tetavenu kecherem hu kol mitzvah אשר אנוכי מצווך היום תשמרו לעשות למען תחיון וביתם ורשתם את הארץ אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם וזכרת את כל הדרך אשר הוליכך אדוני אלוהיך זה וימשנה במדבר למען אותך לנסותך לדעת את אשר בלבבך, התשמור מצוותיו במלואו, ויענך ויריבך, ויכללך את המן, אשר לא ידעת ולא ידעו אבותיך, למען הודיעך, כי לא על הלחם לבדו יחיה אדם, כי על כל מצב אדוני יחיה האדם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amod harav
Avraham Baruch Yosef.
Avraham Baruch Yosef
Ben Moshe V'Tzivia.
Ben Moshe V'Tzivia Lelia Shlishit. Not this one. Yeah. That's my same name.
I'll leave it.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vayed Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Simlatcha lo viltam elecha braglecha lo batzeka ze 40 shana ויראת עם לבביך, כי כאשר יסר איש את בנו, אדוני אלוהיך מיצריך, ושמרת את מצוות אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת בדרכיו ולראות אותו. כי אדוני אלוהיך מביאך אל ארץ טובה, ארץ נחלי מים, עיינות ותמות יוצאים בבקר ובהר, ארץ חיטה ושרה וגפן ותאנה ורימון, ארץ עץ שמן ודבש, ארץ אשר לא במסכנות תאכל בה לחם, לא תחסר כל בה, ארץ אשר אבניה ברזל ומהריך תחצוב נחושת, ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך על הארץ הטובה אשר הראתה לך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Please rise for the lifting and wrapping of the Sefer Torah. Ya'amod hamagbiya ta'amod hagolelet. Oh, let me get you a chair. Hold on.
You have by far the easier of the two jobs.
Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai be'ad Moshe. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomechei ameu shar. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomechei ameu shar. Derachei noam v'chol netivotei shalom. Derachei noam v'chol netivotei shalom. Please remain standing, and you can turn to page 220 as Jackie returns the Torah. Hodol eretz v'shamayim v'yarim keren le'amot tehila lecho chasidav livnei Yisrael karvo hallelujah leDavid mizmor 221. Sorry, that was my bad. Before the Torah goes back in the ark, I'm sorry that I didn't ask. Is there anybody who has an El Male today to recite, a yard site in the coming week? Okay.
It's chaim hilmachazikim ba v'tomchei hameu shahar derachei hadachei noam v'chol nativotei shalom hashivinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadish yaminu kekedem. Yigadavi kadash shemei rabbah me'amadi rakirtei v'amlich malchutei b'chayei chon of yomechon. L'chayei zechol beit Yisrael b'agalav yizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmer b'mavarach le'lam me'omaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpar v'shema v'yitznaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'richu le'lam kol berchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata Tamiran ve'alav v'imru amen.
Whispered Amidah we find on page 220. you have not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Jackie will lead us in the repetition starting on page 223, and we'll join together for the Kedusha on page 225.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Ahel HaGadol HaGibor Ben Ara El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei HaKol Zocher Chasdei Avot Mivin Goel Lifnei V'neihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Atagi boy le'olam Adonai mechayim hitim atarav le'oshia mechakel chayim b'chased mechayim hitim rachamim rabim somach noflim v'rofach olim matir asirim u'mekayim u'rato l'shanei afar min chamocha bal giborot u'midam alach melech mimitim chayim atzmiach yeshua v'ne'man atalach chayot mitim baruch atah Adonai mechayim hamitim. Nigdesh Shemcha Ba'olam Kashem Shemak Tishimo Tabi Shemei Marom Karkati Vayad Neviyacha V'Karazeh Al Zavi Amar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot Melech Haaretz Kevodo Limatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Kevod Adonai V'Mkomo B'divrei Kodshecha Katuv Le'mor Im lochen ale alam Elohayich Zion Ledor vador Hallelujah Ledor vador nagid godlach Al netzach netzachim kedushatcha nagdish Shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu le'yamush le'olam vahed Kel malach gadol v'kadosh atah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el ha'kadosh Atah echad v'shimcha echad U'mikemcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz Tiferet Gedula Ve'ateret Yeshua Yom Menucha Ukdusha Le'amcha Natata Avraham Yagel Yitzchak Yeranein Yaakov Banav Yanuchu Vaho Menuchat Ava Unidva Menuchat Amad Ve'emunah Menuchat Shalom V'Shalva V'Hasheket Ve'Fetach Menucha Shlema She'ata Roteba Yakir Banacha Ve'edu Ki Mitcha Hi Menuchatam Ve'al Menuchatam Yakdishu et Shemecha Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Retzei B'Menuchatenu Kadshenu B'mitzvotacha V'tein cholkenu b'toratecha Sabinu mituvecha V'samchenu b'shuatecha V'tahir libenu Le'ovdecha be'emet Me'amkilenu Adonai Eloheinu Be'avav v'ratzon Shabbat Kodshecha V'nuchu b'Yisrael Mekadeshei Shemecha Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat Retzei Adonai Eloheinu Be'amcha Yisrael U'v'tfilatam Be'hashevet avodah Lidvir v'eitecha U'tfilatam be'avat Tikabel b'ratzon U'tehil ratzon Tamid Adat Yisrael Amecha V'techa Zena Eneinu B'shuvach L'tzion B'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai Amachazir Shechinato L'tzion Modim Anachnu Lach Shetzah Adonai Eloheinu B'le'otinu Le'lam Hatoki lo chalu rachamecha v'ham rachem ki lo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach ve'al kulam yitbarach v'yitormam shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam v'ahed v'chol ha'chaim yoducha salav v'yalu et shimcha be'emet hel yishratinu v'yazratinu salah baruch atah Adonai hato shimcha ulechane elehodod Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha ve'al kol yeshvei tevel tosim le'olam ki atahu melech adon lechol ha'shalom ve'tov beinecha levarach et Amcha Yisrael b'chol etiv chol shabi shlomecha baruch atah Adonai hamvarach et amo Yisrael v'shalom. Yeah, Kaddish on page 230. Ikadavi Kadash, Me Rabba, Ve'am Hadi Rakute, Ve'am Lich Malchute, Bechayechon, V'yom Echon, V'chayet Chol Beit Yisrael, Magalavis Man Kari, V'imru, Amen, Hishmer Rabba Barach, Lamo Me'el Maya, Yibarach V'shabach, V'tbar V'terma V'tnaseh, V'tadar V'taleh V'taleh, Shemei Kudashah, Brichu, Le'lamin Kol Berchata, V'shirata, Tush Bechata, V'nechamata, Tamiran Me'amavimru, Amen. Tigabel Totoni Vaton, De Chol Yisrael Kadam V'hon V'shmaya V'imru, Amen. Yehishlam Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Alini V'el Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom V'ramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Alini V'el Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Alinu, page 231. Alinu Shabeach Adon HaKol, take it along the celebration. Kagatu b'toratach, Adonai Melech Elam v'hed, v'nemar v'Adonai l'melech kol ha'aretz, b'yom ha'vi Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Kaddish Yatom, page 232. Yitz Gadal v'yitz Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra kirete v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon u'v'yom echon u'v'chaye z'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabam v'arach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudasha b'rechu. Le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalom araba min shemaya. Chaim alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, hu yaseh shalom, alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen.
Yasher Koach to Jackie. We'll be hearing from her in just a few moments, and to Mark for reading a ganze Torah portion of Akev for us today. We are going to pause now. People can get some food. I believe it is still wrapped so that the flies don't get to it. So just feel free to unwrap as you get to things. And we'll come back together in about, 10-ish minutes, and Jackie will lead us in some teaching.
dual contestants, like I'd be like 2 days in a row. I've got to do my Hebrew. And nothing to do with me. No?
Well, you know, I'm taped out to the opening Viking game in
No, but
Minnesota.
I think I'm able to
He wanted to go, and how could I say it? With his father.
Oh, is that how it? Is that how
Yeah.
okay.
I would never say no.
You start here, I assume.
my class was at Sinai Temple. I was part of teaching.
Are you also?
My class originally started in
I wasn't
Oh,
here.
okay. I started in
Are they sending you to summer?
but then the pandemic hit.
Outside perspective, it seems like some of the agency does really well.
Pandemic hit, they took a while to get the
Pull me
classes.
from the holidays, which are otherwise wouldn't happen. But I don't think
Consider how much time.
You know, I overheard a conversation.
Ben figures out that there are
They're in San Diego. We have
so much
love for her in the summer.
I thought that's a great shortage of hot
I mean, we
Maybe you're selling the position.
somebody who says you want to my twist was not to take it.
I mean, I also heard people say, like, I got back 2 weeks ago. I have to find an apartment, and I also have to get to the middle of nowhere right now.
That's only in LA Park. New York students they don't serve their first year.
Yeah, that part did surprise me.
Yeah, that's definitely an overwhelming.
But she wasn't. She had a health issue. She could only do 5-day-a-week classes.
Yeah.
She could only do 2 days.
Do you know
So good husband.
Many other women came up at one thing.
we should have to feel to prayer. And then basically, you know, the love life.
I also have like goofy eyes.
It's much better.
That's what I remember. Like the muscles.
No, not spa, but like
Yeah.
it was bathe. Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we were doing all these grammatical things. And the vocabulary
So
is very demanding.
their
Read this book always.
this congregation
We had this very
is
funny
now making
article.
the church run.
Lifting, higher and higher, weight level.
We read this article about
Helping that.
Ukrainian
Ready?
refugees that
Doing that
are
kind of medication, you know?
Goes up, takes it over, unrolls 8 columns, up, down, back, forth,
the
up, down.
popular names would like that were given are single syllable names. So very popular names are Moore, Shear.
Well, okay, we can give everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just a 5-minute warning. Just want to let you know. You can keep eating. You're just going to also be learning. So you have 5 minutes until then.
So it's kind of like this cultural thing. So they were trying to figure out ways to integrate these Ukrainian students, and they were just this is what we newspaper articles we were reading. They have us read human interest articles. So, I can pull up in your chair.
Jacob. Oh, good. I'm glad.
Got take out, make them beautiful, and turn it into and they're like,
I'm just gonna introduce.
You can all keep eating for just well, for the next however long you want. But I'm just gonna introduce Jackie very briefly. Not Jackie the person, you know who Jackie is, but. So Jackie is about to leave for Israel and decided to come back to LA, not just to do this, but when we knew that she was coming back, it seemed appropriate that because Jackie left a week. Well, Jackie actually left Los Angeles later than she was supposed to because her father passed away, and she decided to do all of Shiva here in LA. So it seemed like a really beautiful bookend for Jackie to be able to come back to LA and to this community to be able to observe Shloshim. We took a little bit of artistic license to postpone the Shloshim about a week and a half from when the actual Shloshim was. But I just want to make mention to how special this is to have people who have gotten to know Jackie through her time here at Beth Am, both just as a Beth Am member and shul goer, but also as a rabbinic resident. And also to have so many of her teachers and her colleagues and her peers here to be able to learn alongside her. So it is both fun for me to have my teachers and colleagues here, and also to be able to see how, as a community, we really uplift those who we care most about. So I want to give that to Jackie as some chizuk before she teaches, and also to just say that I hope that this brings your dad's name a lot of blessing, and that we're able to learn a little bit more about him and how we get through this process from you.
Yeah. Hi. This is, I think, the most people ever at a Shabbat that I've ever taught at a Shabbat afternoon. Not like ever in my life, just in this context. Hi. It's like weird to be back and like having left and not left, and yeah. So this morning, as we heard, is Shabbat Nachamu. We're sitting in this moment. This past Sunday, we commemorated Tisha B'Av, this day of collective brokenness and grief. And we're sitting in this sort of arc between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. We're looking a little bit back on where we're coming from, ahead to where we're going. And we're sitting in this period of collective grief. And this, for me, feels really timely, having just lost my father and sitting in this moment, of Shloshim, at the end of Shloshim, and what's next and what's coming next and how to do this. So it feels like really parallel, and what I'm going to talk about is a little bit of collective grief and a little bit of individual grief, and you should, looking around and what I know of people here, you should apply it however it feels most appropriate in your own life, individual, collective, communal. We're going to talk about a little bit where we've come from, and then we're going to move forward. So on the source sheet, we have two quotes about where we might be feeling sometime between last week and this week. The first from Rabbi Yitz Greenberg. Thus, the sense of doom and grief builds up before the day actually arrives. He's talking here about Tisha B'Av and a little bit touching on what makes it different than individual grief. The day of destruction is a culmination of the grief. But immediately thereafter, since nothing can be done to prevent the tragedy from happening, the psychological balance shifts toward the renewal of life. So he's speaking here that the minute Tisha B'Av is over, in some ways we get up and we move towards consolation immediately. There's no shloshim, there's no shiva, there's no shloshim, there's no kaddish. We just sort of move forward. And then Rabbi Alan Lu, Zichron Livracha, who wrote the book, This is Real and You're Completely Unprepared, has a little bit maybe of a different thought or a parallel thought. Tisha B'Av has a hot tip for us. Take the suffering, take the loss, turn toward it, embrace it. Let the walls come down. So I'm gonna turn it to you. What do you think of these two quotes? Are they different ways of looking at it, the same? Does one resonate more or less? Where does this sit on your heart in this moment? You can raise your hand and share. You can yell it out. I can stand here and look uncomfy while no one answers. Whatever we all want. Oh, AJ, thanks. So AJ thinks that the two are they're in a particular order on the source sheet, which I will admit is the order of no particular order. But AJ would suggest to flip them, to say that Rabbi Lu is for that immediate moment. In that moment, take the suffering, and then Rabbi Greenberg is a little bit later. Once you've taken the suffering, then you can shift. Fran? Yeah, so Fran, I won't say it as well as she did, but just to sum up, if you're watching, Fran, I promise I know your name. New name, we're making it up as we go. Fran says that the second one is really challenging, that Rabbi Ellen Lu is so challenging, and she disagrees, which I love a good disagreement, with it for personal grief. That personal grief is not something where it happens in a moment and then that's it, you're done, and it can't be prevented, whereas something like Tisha B'Av, maybe with our individual acts of not doing Sinat Chinam, and I would push and say with what we call Avad Chinam, with baseless love, we can maybe change that, and grief, personal grief, is part of life. So I'm gonna move forward. Oh, all of a sudden there were so many hands. There's a lot of Bueller and then no one. Yeah, Rabbi Parrott, do you wanna?
I actually love the two of them together, and I don't know if I would have thought of this if I didn't see the second one, but I see that turning with Rabbi Lear, the turning into it and letting walls come down as being comfortable with the vulnerability of grief, and that's
I love that, the vulnerability of grief. Like, I'm going to try to hang on to that phrase. But really, Rabbi Harris is talking about putting these two together and saying that when you let the walls come down and you're emotionally vulnerable, that is when the renewal can start to happen, when you sit and you have those feelings. And I will just say that I did not plan to our show if I say the same thing later, and that's my point. She had no idea. So do you want to add something, Tom? Yeah, so I really like that. So Tom's pointing out that there's two different types of grief, that a death is sort of immediate and then you need space, and then a yahrzeit, which is what Tisha B'Av is, that is where you get the buildup and you know it's coming and you're feeling it and you're feeling it and you're getting there, and as Rabbi Greenberg says, it's the culmination, and then you need that sort of release after. So I'm going to move forward. So we're now into this period. If you haven't read This Is Real and you're completely unprepared, I highly recommend it. Find the Spark Notes. But his point that I love is that he really draws the line from Tisha B'Av straight through the Rosh Hashanah. And I think for me growing up, and I think for many of us, we think about when we say it's time for Elul, what is it time for? It's time for repentance. It's time for tshuva. It's time to say sorry. But I think this is telling us, and this arc from Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah is telling us that there's something more than that. That it's not just, okay, we're fine, like Tisha B'Av's done, like start apologizing now. Like there's a little bit more to it than that. So if you look so we have these, right now we started this morning with Shabbat Nachamu, with the Haftarot of Consolation. We have 7 of them. We read the first today, and we'll go all the way up until right before Rosh Hashanah. And I brought 2 halachic texts on it that I thought were so interesting. So this is from Sefer HaManhig, and just to quickly summarize it, you can read it if you want the specifics. It names out all the Haftarot. But it says, what I really love, I'll read it. From Bereshit until the 17th of Tammuz, the Haftarah follows the Parsha. And from then onwards, according to the dates and the events, there are 3 haftarot of rebuke and then 7 of consolation. So for 4/5 approximately of our year, we follow the Parsha. We say the Haftarah is to remind us of the Parsha, to think about what we learned, and then as we come into the end, what could be, what in especially now in Sefer Dvarim is the recap, what could be the end of our year. Instead of saying let's remember it, we say hang on. There's something more important than this. That consolation is more important maybe than remembering what the Torah is telling us, that it's a partner together, that it's not just business as usual. And then the next one from Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which there are sources from the Shulchan Aruch, but they're much longer. Thankfully, we have Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, but you can look it up if you would like. I'm just going to read the part that's bolded in English. The Hebrew is also there if you would like it. If Rosh Chodesh Elul occurs on Sunday, so backing up for a second, we have certain special haftarot based on the calendar. 2 that we read often are Shabbat Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat Machar Chodesh. So when it falls on a Sunday, we read Machar Chodesh. Normally we would. And so this is saying if Rosh Chodesh Elul occurs on Sunday, the Haftarah Machar Chodesh is set aside because it contains no consolation for Jerusalem. So this thing that doesn't, Rosh Chodesh comes every month, comes all these times a year, but it doesn't come so often. It's not a Haftarah read every week. And even in that, there's no consolation. Jerusalem, the people, Israel, don't get what they need. And so the rabbis say, no, we're going to skip it this time. We're going to read this Haftarah of consolation. And in a little bit, it's interesting though, because on Rosh Chodesh, the one we read does include consolation. It comes from the end of Isaiah, which depending on how you've studied it, might be 2nd Isaiah. maybe third Isaiah, never know. But that contains, I did pay attention to that class, but that contains comfort, and so it's okay, and that one we can read. And so I think that is so interesting that Elul is this month where we're striving for perfection. We are coming into this accounting for our souls. And maybe this is the month you would think we have to be medacdek, we have to be perfect, we have to get every little thing right, and we have to do it exactly in this way. And our tradition tells us no. Comfort is more important. And I think that says something. So I have a well-curated Twitter. I will fully admit I spend way too much time on Twitter, but it generally doesn't make me particularly angry. But I found this tweet came across, and I thought it was incredible. Are we too quick to accept our Nachamu Ami? This is the longest it could be. We had a whole 6 days to sit in it, and Shabbat came, and that was it. We so quickly move out of Tisha B'Av and into regular life. And so I want to ask the question, what else can this space be? What is this arc? What is the arc of these Haftorot? What is it asking us? What is it telling us? I would say even stronger, what does this moment demand of us, and what have these sources taught us? Rabbi Schatz. Great. So Rabbi Schatz disagrees with me, which is great, and I will. Oh, disagree with the text. Okay, great. Great, and Rabbi Hertz disagrees with Rabbi Schatz, who disagrees with the text. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. But I just to summarize, if you we're having a lot of fun here. This is what's happening today. But her point, which I won't be able to summarize the whole point well enough, but what I really like is this ebb and flow, that you can feel things during the week, and then Shabbat comes with the Haftarah of consolation as the reminder, and that care and that warm hug that you might need, which I really like that. Kaylee. So Kaylee is saying we start with Nachamu, that similar, I think, in a similar vein to Rabbi Schatz. We start with Nachamu, and then we have 7 that we don't finish there. Joel?
I think what I don't like about this tweet is it thinks that Tisha B'Av is just this one isolated day, but there's a 3-week period that culminates with Tisha B'Av, and then there's the 9 days within the 3 weeks. So there's actually a lot of mourning going on. It isn't just Tisha B'Av and then boom, after one day we get Nachamu, because I think we deserve the Nachamu if we really observe the 3 weeks and the 9 days the correct way. It isn't just Tisha B'Av. And so I think kind of
So I like that. So what Joel is saying is that really Tisha B'Av, I think a little bit similar to what Rabbi Greenberg is saying, that we go through the 3 weeks and the 9 days, and it's this build up, and we deserve it. We've done this morning. We've put in the hard work, and we deserve comfort, and I love that. I just want to keep an eye on the time, so I want to keep moving a little bit. So I want to take a little bit. We're gonna look forward by looking back a little bit. We have in Hebrew, which we said tonight as we put the Torah away, Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'nashuva Chadesh Yaminu Kekedem. Return us, God, to you. Renew our days of old, as of old. This is the second to last line of Eicha that we read on Tisha B'Av. We read one more line, and then we repeat it again to end on a positive note, and we add it in our Torah service. And what does this line feel for you? What does this say to you in this context, in this moment? Maybe in general, but really focusing in as we enter this time. Does it hit any particular notes? Cheva?
I would not say that the Nachamu Ami stops the mourning process. I agree with Rabbi Shaw that it is a continuation and a blossom. But when we come to the question of Venu Benashuva, it is renewing our days, not in the sense that they are brand new to us and we are looking at them as through a child's eyes, but rather that we're looking through, we've been changed by the mourning process that we've gone through again this year, and we've been different as we went through that the whole time we did it last year, and then we've been comforted in a different place, and now we're renewing our days in a different way, and that's what makes them new. It's not the repetition, but rather the finishing through the year that and the new self.
I love that. So Cheva is saying that this renew them comes from this process that we walk through this process and this grief, and we are comforted and we are renewed in a new way, and we find something new, and that is the renewal of this. I love that. I really find this challenging, especially when thinking about grief, both of collective grief, even not to make it too much about like this moment in our lives, but as I come back to it every time, Dr. Rothblum saying we're no longer 2019 people. Like, we are not 2019 people anymore. And what does that look like? And what does it look individually? Like, we are never the same after we lose a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, God forbid, a child. We're not the same people. And I found, with thanks to Rabbi Matt Shapiro, this quote from Rabbi Rob Scheinberg, a wonderful rabbi in our day, and he says, it means renew our lives as you renewed our lives after we were exiled from the Garden of Eden. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem is then not a plea for restoration of a formerly perfect condition, but rather it is a plea for resilience, a plea for the ability to renew ourselves after future crises and dislocations, just as our lives have been renewed before. As Elie Wiesel said, God gave Adam a secret, and that secret was not how to begin, but how to begin again. We've talked about grief and grieving and consolation and how do we find it. But the question for me always is, so what? What do we do with this? I think for me, what I love so much about this arc of Tisha B'Av and 7 weeks into Rosh Hashanah is that we end with Rosh Hashanah. It's happening in tandem with tshuva, and so often we talk about tshuva as repentance, but I myself have been trying to ask myself about tshuva as return, of what are we returning to and who are we returning to. And what I love about Rosh Hashanah is it gives us the opportunity to hit that big red button and just say, we're done, that's it. It comes and the year is over, and we have to put in the work to get there. But then once we put in the work, we hit the button and we get to be that new person. We get to give ourselves permission to stop being who we were last year. And I don't know. So we get that, and we get to close the door on our year. And we also a little bit get to close the door on loss. We see from this, we close the door on our communal loss, that in 7 weeks we get to say, okay, Tisha B'Av, okay, consolation, it was great, see you later. And I think this is also a lesson for our own personal grief. And that number might not be 7 weeks. I don't know what it is. This is my first time doing this. I'll let you know when I figure it out. But it's permission to give ourselves space to find comfort in friends and community and the rituals that Judaism offers us. And I think it's also permission to hit that big red button and to say, I've done the work and I've done the process, and it's not a dishonor, and it's okay to walk in the world in a new and different way. And that person that we're grieving, the thing we're grieving, whatever it is, it's still part of us. Tisha B'Av and the destruction of the temple is always with us. We don't forget it because Rosh Hashanah comes. But I really think that it is a reminder of ourselves in personal grief to let ourselves start over and say, I am now renewed. I am a new person because of these experiences, and I can move forward in a new way. And so I hope this brings everyone comfort collectively and individually wherever you're at in communal and individual grief. And you all have a lovely season of tshuva, whatever that means to you. Shabbat shalom. Thank you. There's your watch.
Yasher koach to Jackie. We will bench someone who ate bread will lead the Zimun for us, and then we will continue with Mariv. Jackie, I just want to offer you one thing that you ended with, but I want to offer this to you as a way that this community can still be support for you even when you are in Israel for the year. That it dawns on me that Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva. By the way, if anybody's interested in this verse a little bit more, last year on Tisha B'Av, we all talked about this verse for about an hour and a half. So people can look back at that podcast if you're interested. But this idea that we actually have to look into ourselves and look into our past and memories to be able to chadesh yameinu kekedem, to be able to make our days new and to be able to move forward. And so I hope that as you are navigating the streets of Jerusalem and the really wonderful experience of the CY, that you also recognize that if you need to recall back to the people of this community, whether it be the community members or your rabbis or your friends, that we are here to also help you move forward in those Yamenu Kekedem, in those days that are going to come for you as new and hopefully exciting and I'm sure very successful. I will start Shir Hamalot, but someone else is going to have to do the Zimun, so think about who you are. Shir Hamala v'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kecholmim az yamales chok pinu u'leshonenu rina az yomru v'hagoyim hitil Adonai lasoti meilehem hitil Adonai lasoti manu hayinu semechim shuv Adonai Shevitenu kafikim ba'negev hazorim bedima berin ha'yiktoru haloch yelechu v'achon osem eshech hazara bo yavo verina nose alumotav. Stevie? Oh. Yeh Yishman Merachmeta Ve'adolam. Baruch Hayinu Shachanu Mishalach Tivach Hayinu. you haven't finished benching, please continue at your own pace. We're going to continue with Mariv on page 264, and if you're able to do so, please rise. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה לשבעה פה ולא ירקוך חמתו, אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קוראנו, ברכו את אדוני המבורך. Baruch Adonai Yamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. Umavir Yom Umevi Laila Mavdil Ben Yom Uvelayla Adonai Tzvaot Shemo El Chai V'Kayam Tamidim Lochalenu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Ata Adonai Hamari Varavim Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Macha Avtat Haram ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Adonai Elohim emet, ve'emunah kol zakayim alenu kiron Eloheinu v'zedah. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה בני ישראל לכהנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך בעלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נוראתי לא תוסף אלה מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני קהל ישראל השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו שלום ובנינו ופנינו פרס לנו סוכה שלום וחמתנו וצד ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום יתהווה עד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן ברוך אדוני מצוין כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולם לעד תמלוך בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ועל כל מעשיו יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברכותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירנה בעלמא ואמרו amen. The whispered Amidah for the conclusion of Shabbat is on page 270. If you have not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 279. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בהמה דברה קראתי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. והינו אמר אדוני אלוהינו עלינו מעשה ידינו כוננה, עלינו מעשה ידינו כוננהו, יושב בסתר עליון בצל של דית לננה מננה. יקרא עיני ועיניהו עמו אנוכי וצרח לצבח בדי אורך ימים אספיהו והריהו בישועתי אורך ימים אספיהו והריהו בישועתי. We'll turn back now to page 216. ואתה קדוש ישבתי לו ישראל וקרא זרע זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך על הארץ כבודו. מקבלים דין מדין. ותישא עיני רוח ואשמע אחרי קרש גדול ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו נתתני רוחם. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני מלכות הקיים לעולם ולעולם. ויפתחו וחיודי שמך כי לא עזבת דרשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר. Turn back to page 280. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בהמה דברה קראתי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלעות ההון ובתהון דכל ישראל, קודם אבון דבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ברמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשתנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת יום והשבת אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Kadisha Tom, Warner's Kaddish, page 282. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah be'alma divra kirute ve'amlich machute bechayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Israel ba'agala u'vizman kari ve'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam lamei almaya. Yit barach ve'yish tabach ve'yit pa'ar ve'yit romam ve'yit naseh ve'yit hadar ve'yit ale ve'yit halal shemei dekudisha brechu le'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yasher koach again to Jackie for leading and for teaching. We will do Havdalah in, I think, 1 minute. We don't usually run early, so here we are. If everyone wants to just come as close as you're comfortable coming. I see 3 stars. We're good. Okay, we're gonna do Havdalah. Yanai na 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 yanai na na yanai yanai na na yanai na na yanai na Eftach velo efchad, ki ozi vezimratya, Adonai vayehi li lishua, ushaftem mayim besason, mimanei ha-yeshua, Adonai ha-yeshua, alamcha virchatecha sela, Adonai tzevaot, Imanu miskav lanu Elohei Yaakov Sela Adonai Tzevaot Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach Adonai Yoshia Hamelech Ya'aneinu V'yom Koreinu LaYehudim Hayta ora vesimcha vesason veikar ken tieh lanu kosi yeshuot esa uveshem Adonai ekra yainanai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei vesamim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael le'amim, ben yom hashvi'i le'sheshet yamei hamaseh, Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, Chatoteinu imcho, Zareinu v'chaspeinu, yarbe yarbe kacho, v'kakochavim v'layla. Zareinu v'chaspeinu, yarbe yarbe kacho, v'kakochavim v'layla. Shavua tov, 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 Shavua tov. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimhera ve'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everyone, and we will see you soon.